This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
You know, every year the government issues a cost of living adjustment. You may have heard it also be called COLA for Social Security. It's supposed to help keep up with inflation. And in 2026, COLA will be at 2.8%. And an average monthly check, that new COLA translates to a whopping big $56 extra a month. Mark, should retirees count on pocketing any of this increase, or does it just sound good, but it's not that great?
Yeah, I don't get terribly excited about these cost of living increases. I mean, we appreciate whatever we can get. We don't have a lot of control over it. The government sets these. But the truth is that inflation has been such that costs have risen so much that I don't see any gains happening for people. I mean, you look at the fact that their Part B Medicare premiums are going to be increasing, Part D premiums as well. Well, that definitely will eat up at least half of it. And then just general expenses, the grocery store are going to more than eat that up. So people need to be looking at their portfolio, making whatever adjustments they need to make to squeeze as much as they can out of their portfolio or existing assets. Because, again, retirement's not about how much assets we have. It's about how much income we have. And sometimes we just have to think differently about our assets and look to convert those to income, because things don't get cheaper, as we know.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about converting assets into income. We've talked about this before, how retirement really has three ingredients here. It's income, income, and income. And you like to say it all the time, Mark, that money and income, what's the difference you say? Is one of them is fuel, right?
Yeah, we shouldn't aspire for money. We just need to think of it as what it is, as a medium. It's a medium to accomplish the goals that we need. But when it comes to retirement, it's all about income. It's about that continuity, because we can't go back to work. And so we've got to have passive forms of income. So Social Security, pensions, it may be home equity that's being converted through a reverse mortgage, for example. Annuities are obviously a tremendous benefit to people. But yeah, it's guaranteed income at the end of the day, income that they can't outlive. That's what people are concerned about. That's what keeps dignity. This is why we need to do an asset and income review for people. I mean, it's an income analysis at the end of the day, because we've got to assure that people have the dignity they need, and that all boils down to income. So let's do an income analysis.
Yeah, this asset and income analysis could be available for you. It's complimentary today, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. Think about it like this. When you come in for this asset and income review, it's kind of taking that bird's eye view of what do I have, what moving parts should be going over here and over here to give me that protection, to give me that growth, and to give me that confidence, quite frankly, moving into retirement. Again, that phone number, 702-996-4050, the website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. You know, as the seasons change, there's a couple reminders that you need to change at your home. For example, your HVAC air filters. Why? Well, studies show that the following things, they might be polluting inside your home. I'm talking about new walls, floors, and furniture. You know, sometimes they can have that new funky smell. Gas stoves, well, apparently they emit ultrafine particles and nitrogen oxide, not good for you. And candles and other scented products, they give off carbon-based chemicals. These are all things that are invisible, Mark. So what kind of invisible pollutant could be hurting the health of our retirement plan?
Oh, my heavens. I mean, there's a number of things. I mean, the first is probably just the indifference that we have. We get so busy with life that we don't stay on top of things and monitor things. And often there's old accounts sitting out there, like an old 401k with the prior employer that hasn't been looked at in years, and maybe it's not as efficient, or maybe there's too many fees involved in it, for example, or maybe we have old annuities, for example, or life insurance policies that haven't been updated, so we have too much expense going on, or we're paying for the wrong types of insurance. We're not dealing with things like long-term care. So sometimes we got to make shifts there, and so I would say that just the seasons of life that pass so quickly are the invisible thing that eats people up, because they just get distracted and they don't stay on top of the details. That's why they often need to have a professional advisor there to keep bringing them back to the annual checklist. Where are we at on this? Where are we at on that? Are we geared up to be where we need to be at the end of the day? So, yeah, the invisible thing, I think, is just the pace of life. So, yeah, in terms of invisible things that kind of eat us up, I think The big thing's just inattention, but and that drives back to the fact that people, for example, have many old retirement plans that they haven't looked at in a while, and so they're paying too much in fees. We need to do regular fee analysis and see, are you getting what you should be getting? Are your investment allocations up to date? Do they need to be changed? Is it something you chose when you were 20 and that needs to be altered now? Do we need to be dealing with guaranteed investments? And so there's a checklist of things that we go through with our clients, and we do it periodically. I mean, at least annually, but typically we're meeting 2-3 times a year. We get so busy in life, we forget about, and fees really eat you up. I mean, fees is definitely a big deal, but I would say lost opportunities to convert, for example, from traditional to Roth IRA, for example. It's just these lost opportunities that we just need to keep coming back. I mean, people hit age milestones, for example, where they can, for example, this week we're helping a few clients roll money out of their active 401k plans because they've reached this magical age of 59 and a half. And so we reach these age milestones, and it's kind of an invisible thing because people aren't conscious that these are wonderful opportunities where they can take control of their money, but because they don't deal with these issues every day, they need reminders. And so that's how we help people. So we invite folks to come in. Let's do an analysis, do a checklist review, and see where you at on these key issues. Let's make sure your money is working for you so that you're not having to work for it forever.
And this analysis is a great way to do this. You talk about having that checklist, that review. I think a lot of people mess up because they think planning for retirement is a set it and forget it thing. Well, my 401k is doing this. I'll do this later. And they never get to it. Procrastination could be the killer of your income plan, your retirement plan, not taking the time to understand things like you mentioned, the fees and how confusing that can be. You have to really put in the work for what the retirement is going to be when you get out. And again, if you want to sit down for that analysis, that checklist, that review, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050, that website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com.
But, a good thing for us to remember is we really can be inspired by these airplane pilots. They go through a routine of these checklists before they ever take flight. They go step by step by step through a book, and they have a co-pilot there who's reviewing it with them. That's, in many ways, the role of the financial advisor as a coach, is to kind of co-pilot this thing, as it were. And so you chart your course, but we got to make sure before you take off that you got the fuel to get to your destination. That you know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and you have the fuel to actually make it to that end destination. So let us be your co-pilot.
I love that. Yeah, give Mark a call today and say, hey, man, I need a co-pilot. Be my maverick, if you will. Help me out a little bit. That phone number, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. And, of course, that website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. 4 times a year, America's companies report their earnings. And, in fact, we're in an earnings season right now. Wall Street reviews the numbers closely and looks for signs of where the market might be heading. Wealth manager Jason Katz tells Fox Business that he still remains bullish.
Valuations may be rich by historic standards, but earnings continue to grow into stock prices. This earnings period is no different. We're already off to a torrid pace. Over 13% have reported, 86% have beat, and the Mag 7 is in the not too distant future. They must deliver, and we believe they will. Listen, they count for 40% of the S&P's performance, and I think the AI CapEx boom will go right to their bottom lines and help earnings go
up is what he was trying to say there. I think it's really easy if you weren't around in, 2020 or maybe even 2008. If you have not been around to see when the market is not bullish, it does the exact opposite. It's really easy to have your head in the clouds and go, oh my gosh, it's going to be a bull market forever, right?
Well, yeah, and that tendency definitely exists. I mean, I think of some clients or prospective clients who, had everything in Tesla last year, for example, and then they didn't take the recommendations that we advised, and then they thought it was only going to go up, 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 until suddenly it wasn't going up. It was going down pretty quickly, and so they got spanked very badly. So, I mean, not to beat on Tesla, I think great company, but generally speaking, I'm very, very bullish about the future of our economy and about our country. I think that it's the realists who are optimistic about the future, the innovation that's taking place. We live in incredible time in human history. But with that said, we also know that what goes up goes down. I mean, the nature of markets are cyclical, and just like the ocean waves, we should expect them to ebb and flow up and down. And we need to construct portfolios that'll help us when those shocks hit the system, because they may just be minor ebbs, but sometimes there's major shocks. I mean, you cited, for example, COVID, back in 2020. Who saw that one coming? And back in 2008, a lot of people were forcibly retired prematurely, and something like 48% of Americans are retired earlier than expected for reasons entirely beyond their control. And if that retirement coincides with a market downturn, that can have devastating results on a portfolio if people want to reach into that portfolio to create income. So I am still a big advocate, always have been, I think always will be, in having at least two pockets of money. What I call a two-pocket strategy is the idea that some of our money needs to be in the market growing for the future. Some of our money needs to be out of the market, because that gives us a place to turn when the market's down. And it buys us time, most importantly, for the market to recover. And so, yeah, I share his optimism, but I'm also absolutely sure that we're going to have some hard times coming ahead. I just don't know when they are.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a crystal ball, man, your life would be a lot easier, for sure. But we've talked about this before, how this is not a political show, but I think you've got to get your head out of the sand and realize there's a lot of decisions being made right now, crossing the headlines left and right, that are going to impact our economy, that are right now impacting our job market. A lot of folks, as you mentioned here, are finding themselves retiring when they weren't necessarily ready. They were forced into retirement, or maybe they took a buyout if you're a federal employee. These are all things that are really spicing up right now, and I think I'm with you. I think things are going to get worse before they get better. So good. Enjoy the bullish market as it continues to go up, but have those protections in place for when the market goes down. When. Not if, but when. And, Mark, this is something you've seen left and right, especially over 30 years. You've been around for different presidencies, Democrat, Republican, you name it. And it's not necessarily about them or what they're doing. It's just the impact that we take financially. And you've also seen where people thought they were protected and they had that protection in place, or at least they thought they did. And when the market went down, it stopped them in their tracks. I mean, literally takes the breath out of them going, I was going to retire in 3 years. Now I have to work another 6 or 7 years.
There can be that kind of setback, and that can be devastating. That's why we want to meet with people 5-10 years before retirement, so we can start building those guardrails in so that people are protected in case those things happen, because it really can be devastating. My heart goes out. I often talk about this in my public seminars. Everyone in Vegas knows what happened to people in the construction, real estate, and mortgage industries back in 2008. And it was devastating because people were prematurely retired. They had to go on Social Security earlier than expected, which meant they took a discounted benefit for the rest of their life. They were rating their investment accounts during a time when the market was down. And only now, literally, 20-odd years later, are they really feeling the effects of that. It's what we call sequence of return risk. But there's some serious issues here that need to be addressed, and that's, again, one of the reasons we love having people come to these public education events we do, because we actually show them from an academic standpoint some of these risks that people aren't even aware of. And so with enough advance time, preferably 5, ideally 10 years before retirement, we can really, really safeguard them. So that's why we invite them to come in. Let's do a readiness review. Are you protected the way you should be?
If you'd like to come in for this readiness review, give a call today, 702-996-4050. That's 702-996-4050. The website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. Personal finance expert Susie Orman, she hosts a podcast called Women and Money. And a woman wrote in and said that she's torn about her pension decision. Should she take the $450,000 lump sum or the $3,000 a month that she would get for life? Susie answered this with saying, if you take the $3,000 for life, you run the risk of a pension program being changed or even ending, and there's no legacy when you die. And so her suggestion was take the $450,000 lump sum, split it up, put some in an annuity, and invest the others. And then with that combined with your Social Security, Susie says you'll be fine. What do you think, Mark, and what would you have recommended?
Well, I'd love a little more detail. I think in general terms, Susie is correct that there's a lot to be said for taking control of those assets. We don't want to be dependent upon some third-party employer pension plan, for example, for the health of the future. But we always tell people, if you have a lump sum option, let's research it before you make that decision at work, because there's a few big advantages to this. Number one is we can very likely, often, not always, but often get a higher payout from private insurance companies than what your pension plan is offering. And those private insurance companies are, frankly, the safest institutions in the world, and I can prove that. But we can get them a higher payout. The other thing that people don't realize, and that Susie did not address there, is that by taking the lump sum option, individuals can then actually convert all or a portion of that money into tax-free Roth IRA status and then turn the income stream on. And that is powerful, because then when the income stream comes on, it's actually tax-free rather than taxable. So again, it's not about what we make, it's what we get to keep. And so the tax planning has to be part of that. And too infrequently is that brought up when people look at their pension options. So yes, I think she's right. People should take control of it. Perhaps some of it should go into the market. Certainly some of it should go into some kind of guaranteed income plans, but all of that should be in a bigger context of taxes. Taxes are really a bigger deal than people realize. And if you can legally avoid the taxes, then we would say do it. Tax avoidance is legal. Tax evasion is not, but tax avoidance we should be involved in with proper planning.
But I think people shy away from taxes, the conversation, and planning because it's overwhelming, it's daunting, it's scary. So having this conversation is huge. So tell me a little bit more about that, about your opinion on folks that are kind of holding back because of this.
Well, I would say that they're normal, because there is a lot of anxiety around taxes. It's not something we learned about in high school or, generally speaking, in college. And so what people learn, they typically have picked up along the way. But my observation, having dealt with thousands of people over the years, is that most people are totally convinced that tax rates are going to have to increase in the future. But what they've done in preparation for retirement has them at odds with that, because they're mostly in tax-deferred accounts, meaning none of it's been taxed yet, and therefore it will be exposed to whatever the future increased tax rates are. And so this idea of converting from tax-deferred or tax postponed, to put it more precisely, into a tax-free status is really critical. And so one of the things we do for people is a complementary tax analysis, where we'll show them what the lifetime savings would be if they convert, if they volunteer to pay the taxes now and get Uncle Sam legally behind them, so that they can go into retirement without the burden of income taxes. But again, I have to stress legally, and that's why we need to have professionals involved, and we want to work in conjunction with their CPA. But here in my office, we're doing a tax analysis service for people. It's part of our ongoing services. Matter of fact, my associate, Daniel Carrigan, he's a certified financial planner. He's phenomenal at this stuff. And we'll chart it out for people, and we'll make the case. Here's the potential lifetime savings. And once people see that, then it makes it easier to make those difficult decisions of, for example, paying taxes now before you're forced to. So not what you make, it's what you keep, and tax planning has to be part of this. So if you don't understand it, come meet with us. That's what we do.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.